Hey, welcome to our Bible study. We are going through the life of Jesus so that we can be more like Jesus. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to be like Jesus, more compassionate, less judgmental, more loving, less unkind, that there's just a bit of a pushback, and you can't even always tell just exactly where that's coming from, but it's just like the more you try to be like Jesus, the more life just says, hey, hold on there, buddy, I don't think so. And it's frustrating and it's tiring and it's exhausting. But as we look at the life of Jesus today and we see the same thing happening to him, there are some odd positives that come out of that. We're going to look at that today in our study of the Gospel of Mark, chapter 3. So grab your Bible and let's dive in. Okay, if you're joining us for the first time, we are in Mark chapter 3, and we're going to start in verse 7, but let me give you a little bit of background just in case you weren't with us before. We are in the early parts of Jesus' ministry, and he is already starting to have people who believe in him, who follow him, who are hearing the message that he really is the Messiah, the Son of God. Some of them are at various levels of belief and faith, some just exploring, just curious, some really believe, and some have already started to dedicate their whole life to following him and learning from him what it means to be a disciple of Jesus and a follower of God. But there are also those who are already starting to oppose him. And when I say oppose him, I mean really oppose him. We saw in the first 6 verses of chapter 3 last time that he already had people who were upset that the miracles he was doing were real, but not done on the right day. He healed a man with a shriveled hand in Mark chapter 3, and there were people that were upset because he did it on a Sabbath day. You know, how dare you heal on the wrong day? They were very upset. In fact, they're so upset that when he pointed out the hypocrisy of that, they start plotting to kill him. And that seems very extreme, I know, and just a wackadoo reaction to what he had done, which was good and compassionate and kind. But we're going to see why that happens in our study today. Why, when you try to do good things, is evil always right there to just mess with you and mess up what you're trying to accomplish? Why is Satan just always on the job? Well, could it be because Satan believes that Jesus is who he says he is? Why is he so upset unless Jesus really is the Son of God? And that's what we find here in this passage. So starting in verse 7, I'll put it up on the screen. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed. And when they heard about all he was doing, many came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him to keep the people from crowding him. For he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them strict orders not to tell others about him. All right, so let's go back to verse 7 and work our way through this text. He goes out to find, I think, probably some time to rest and recuperate, maybe to focus on smaller groups or individuals in his ministry and his conversations and his teaching. We see Jesus do this an awful lot because, remember, while Jesus is the Son of God, as is clearly said in this text, he is also fully man. And so he gets tired, he gets hungry, he gets exhausted, he gets drained. When you're around big crowds, especially if you're an introvert, and I don't know that I would ever classify Jesus as introvert or extrovert, Jesus is Jesus. But if you are one of those, then you know that gets draining and you need to withdraw and find your energy again. And you see Jesus do this. It says very often he would go to lonely places on purpose to pray, to focus on his relationship with God, to rejuvenate his own strength, and to be ready for the next thing that's coming, just like you have to do and I have to do. So we see that with Jesus often, and as we do, we also often see what some of you mothers have experienced, right? If you are the mother of a toddler, you know all too well what it's like to be Jesus. I don't know if you thought about it that way, but that's true. So many mothers talk about that when they had their toddlers, and I don't know, mothers, it just seems that they track you down. It's your strength. It's one of your superpowers, but it's also one of those things that makes you need a moment of quiet, even if it's just to go to the bathroom, right? You try to go to the bathroom, and that toddler will seek you out like, they're like little sub hunters searching for submarines in the ocean. They're going to find their mama. And they do. And sometimes you need a moment. Well, Jesus, same way, sometimes he needs moments. He would go and he would pray. He would seek God's strength. He would refocus, all those things. And I think this is probably one of those moments. We don't have a whole lot of detail on why he withdrew the way he did, but it's probably that based on other times and places where that's what he did. So he goes and he gets followed, and like a bunch of little toddlers, they come from all over the place and they seek him out to the point where he is actually having to say, guys, I'm going to have to get out on the water in a boat just to have, bubble. I am. Those who know me well, I'm a big space bubble person. I like a great big bubble. When they started talking about social distancing, I was like, finally, somebody's getting behind my kind of space. I like people, and I like people at the end of my bubble. You know what I mean? Just the way it is. Too many crowded buses in the summer in my life. But anyway, Jesus, just for probably safety and practicality, decides to get into the boat so that he can actually address them and speak to them as a crowd as they're pushing around. Now, when it talks about this crowd, it's not just people from, the neighborhood. It tells us, and if you're not familiar with the geography, let's look at this for a second. It tells us in verse 8, when they heard about all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Well, this is not a small little area. As I said, this isn't the neighborhood. This is north, south, east, and west. I don't know what that's like for you, but north, south, east, and west all around. And so basically it's like all over what we would consider Israel, right? So all over Israel, from the top end to the south end, east side to the west side, people are coming from all over the place. So it's not just significant that he's drawing a huge crowd because they've heard about the miracles he's done and the people he's healed and the things that he's saying, but it's significant that they are coming not just from the countryside, but from all over the country, okay? You don't make on-foot journeys across your country for nothing. This is huge. So that tells us some things. They are very curious about what Jesus is doing, teaching, and everything else. The text says so. We know that's the case. But they're very curious. Some of them are curious from a place of belief. They already are saying, hey, I think that his claim to be the Messiah is real if these things are true. But they want to see with their own eyes, is it real? Are these healings real? You can understand that, right? A little bit of healthy skepticism is a good thing. You don't want to be a cynic, but a skeptic, that's a good thing. When you say, okay, I'm hearing these things, it's possible he's the Messiah if they're real, but are they? Good, healthy question. So they go out to see, are these things real? And they are greeted with more healing, more reality, and they're going to continue wrestling with, man, that looked real to me. And so, if they're from Missouri, they're starting to go, I saw with my own eyes. Now that gives me something to think about. But that's where they are. But more than that happens this day in Galilee. Verse 9, so he gets out on the boat to keep the people from crowding them. Verse 10, he had healed many so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Why are they doing that? Because he'd already healed many. They'd already seen it. And they believe that he's able to do this. This is an act of faith, and they are trying to touch him. Verse 11, whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." So we have two things going on here. First, he's already healed many. That's what I'm going to call today positive proof. Things that they are seeing with their own eyes that is showing them, they may not know yet exactly, they may not have decided yet that he's the Son of God, that he's the Messiah. But there is absolute proof in front of them. Okay, we're reading about this secondhand, but they are seeing it with their own eyes. And they're saying, just saw a person get healed. The deaf hear, the lame walk, the blind can see. This guy is something. Okay, something. So they may wrestle. It may be like the guy who was healed in John chapter 9. There was a blind man healed in John chapter 9 in Jerusalem. And he goes through kind of a progression. When you read through John 9, good homework assignment there, you see a progression in his thinking. At first he says, well, this man healed me. Okay, he has very positive proof. He has experienced it for himself. He is healed. A man who could never see, could see because of Jesus' healing. Okay? And he says, at first, the man who healed me. As he is processing what happened to him, he moves from the man who healed me to, I think he was a prophet. And the difference there is still a man. As a prophet, he's still a man, just a man, but he's a man from God, doing work on behalf of God through the power and Spirit of God. So that confession first that he's a man who healed me is just the facts. That he now believes, and I think that he is from God, is his processing through that, because he's reasoning, a man can't do this. God could do this, but a man just can't do this. So he must be a man because he still believes he's just a man, but he must be a man from God because this is a God thing. So he then continues to process. And as people challenge him, as the Pharisees challenge him and go, are you sure? How did he do this? Why did he do this? Who was he from? And they are starting to say and accuse, he must be from the devil. But the man who was actually healed goes, no, this is a God thing. You know only God does these things. Come on. You need to believe in him too. Are you starting to believe in him? And by the end of it, when he comes back into contact with Jesus at the end of John chapter 9, that man falls at Jesus' feet and worships him as Lord, the Son of God, the Messiah, because of the positive proof of what he experienced, what he saw, and what he reasoned and understood to be something that could only be a work from God. Okay? That was his progression through that. Go check it out, John chapter 9. Well, they're working as a crowd through some of these same things, but there is another part of this story. So there is the positive proof of the miracle done. John chapter 20, verses 30 and 31 tells us, reminds us that these miracles were done so that, and they were recorded, so that we would understand what happened and understand the same process they went through, that this must be proof that he is God, from God, doing works by the Holy Spirit. Okay? That's what they're there for. That's what the positive proof is for. That's what the miracles were about. Then you have negative proof in this particular event. What's the negative proof? Okay, I mentioned in the intro that sometimes when we do good, Satan fights back, and you see evil just push back and push back and push back. And it's to the point that sometimes, you've probably said this, I know I've said this, I've heard a lot of people in my life say this, we must be on to something good. We must be about to really have a breakthrough in our ministry and our work for God and our service to the Lord, our relationship with God, something you're trying to overcome, whether that's addiction or over a sin or just hard circumstances. You feel like, man, I'm just at the point of a breakthrough, and you know you must be at the point of breakthrough from God because Satan is fighting you at every last step. You start to get opposition from people that makes no sense. You start getting circumstantial problems that make no sense because you know Satan is fighting this good thing that is working out in your life, or that you're doing, or that you're helping somebody else with, or working with the church with. You're starting to see really good things, and in opposition to that, you start to see the work of Satan work. It's like matter, antimatter. Good is happening, so evil starts to happen. And Satan starts to push back. As long as you were still lost and in that mess, he didn't fight you, right? Because why fight you? He's already got you where he wants you. Satan doesn't bother with that kind of stuff. If he's got you in a bear trap, why try to allure you into a hog trap, right? He's got you. But you try to step out of that trap. You try to get free of that trap. God starts to set you free from that trap. And what happens? Satan's going to get upset, and he starts to work against you. And you see that in Jesus' ministry, and you've probably seen that and experienced that in your own life. And we know that's one of those proofs we're onto something good, because Satan starts to fight it. Why do I bring that up? Well, one, to encourage you in some of the things that we're going to look at, but also because in this text, that's what's already been happening. At the beginning of chapter 3, Jesus heals a man with the shriveled hand. I mentioned that earlier. And what happens? They start to push back. And even to the point that a few evil men, start to plot to kill him, because Satan works overtime. It's just that simple. Satan works overtime, and he found some useful pawns whose pride was useful in fighting the good that Jesus was doing. But that's also a bit of negative, what I'm going to call negative proof. The pushback from Satan is sometimes an evidence of the good work of God that's happening. Now, sometimes, let me just caution you, sometimes we may want to say that, people are only fighting me because I'm doing good. And we might miss that there are times when maybe there are good people with good reasons trying to wake us up to a mistake we're about to make. We need to be open to that. But when something is undeniably good and undeniably a work of God and according to the will of God, and you see staunch opposition, well, you just know Satan's playing his hand. He's showing you who he is and what he's about, and that gives, while he tries to throw shade, it actually makes more evident the light that is present, because light shines brightest in the darkness, right? And this is what happens. Verse 11, whenever the impure spirits saw Jesus, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." Now, what was that like as these people who have come out from all over the country to see, is this guy the Messiah? Is he the Son of God? What do they start thinking when they've already seen the positive proof of miracles? Shriveled hand guy, deaf people hearing, lame people walking, diseased people well. And they're seeing all of this. And then they see these evil spirits possessing people. This is possessed people professing a belief in Jesus. That's one of the weird things that we need to deal with here. James chapter 2, verse 19. He's talking about faith and whether or not we really believe that Jesus is the Son of God and whether or not we really believe in God at all. And he says, really that's going to be borne out in the way that we live. He says, if you just say, "Oh, I believe," he says, well, good for you. But guess what? Even the demons believe and they shudder. Now, it's kind of funny. James's point is this. You get complacent and cocky in your belief. You're like, "Oh, yeah, I believe in God." And yet the demons are more humble in their belief than you are. They shudder. You go, "I don't need to change anything. I believe in God. I don't need to prove anything." And James goes, well, actually, there should be fruit. If faith is the root of your tree and who you really are, you'll bear fruit. Well, in making that point, he points out as well, again, the demons do believe. They're scared to death of the authority of God. They know who he is, and they profess a belief, and they even have fruit in their fear of that belief. We're going to look at Mark chapter 5 here in a couple of weeks. And in that chapter, we see a man who is possessed by multiple demons, evil spirits. Those demons confess again that they know who Jesus is and they recognize His authority. Negative proof. Those who are opposed to Him often profess a deeper faith than those who claim to believe in God. They often exhibit a deeper faith. Now, why would that be? Because Satan knows. The devil knows, the demons know, the evil spirits know, the impure spirits in Mark chapter 3 know. In the spiritual realm, there is no question about who is God. In the spiritual realm, there is no question about whether or not Jesus is the Messiah. They testify to us, even in their opposition to good, in their attempts to do evil. The spiritual realm gives testament to who Jesus is. So there shouldn't be any question in our mind if the works that He did and the things that were witnessed during His life and ministry all positively speak to His being the Son of God, being able to do what no human could do, then how much more do we also see that the angels profess God has spoken at His baptism and said, "This is my Son." And then, on top of all that, even His enemies go, "Oh yeah, He's the Son of God, all right. He is the Son of God, all right." And we are scared to death of Him. We see that here, and we will see it again in Mark chapter 5. James says it in James 2:19. Now, what's a practical application of that for you and me? One, if we're still on the fence, we need to start leaning toward belief, because everything in the spiritual realm, positive and negative, is professing to us who Jesus really is. So that's one thing. That's something for you to chew on, something for you to wrestle with and to be praying about and just coming to some conclusions about. The other thing, though, is maybe you're a Christian, you've been one for a very long time. Maybe you're one of those people that you've been saying, "Man, I must be about to really see a breakthrough. I must be onto something good because the devil is fighting me hard." Yeah, that's right. But remember this, 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. Remember this, "He who is in us is greater than he who is in the world." Those impure spirits who professed, "You are the Son of God," they were telling the truth. And they are scared of Him. Again, James 2. And they shudder. So don't let the opposition of evil people, don't let the opposition of Satan scare you into thinking that devil's going to win. He ain't going to win. If you're trying to overcome, if there are sins in your life that God is working with you to give you strength, forgiveness, and grace to overcome, lean into Him. Lean into Him. Trust Him. He's got this. Is there going to be opposition? Yes. Is there going to be temptation from Satan to fall back in? Yes. Are there going to be people try to derail you? Yes. And greater is He who is in you, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and the Holy Spirit of God. Greater is He who is in you than he who is in the world. Satan knows. You should know even better that God has this. God bless you. Join us again next week as we continue this journey through the life of Christ, seeing who He is, what He did, and what He still does through His people, the church, and through you as His Spirit strengthens you for the walk. God bless you. Have a great week. Thank you again for joining us for our Bible study today. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And come and join us for worship on Sunday at the Early Church of Christ.